On our honeymoon cruise, I found my husband at the pool bar, flirting with a newlywed bride while I sat alone in our cabin. When I asked him about it, he smirked and said, "You should have known marriage wouldn't change me." I booked a flight home from the next port, and posted his room number all over the ship with a note, "Free for whoever wants him." So, I found out who my husband really was during our honeymoon cruise. Yeah. Our honeymoon. I'm Rachel. I'm 34. I live in Columbus, Ohio. I married Brandon after 3 years of dating, and it's a decision I'll regret for the rest of my life, but it also led to the most savage thing I've ever done. I never thought I had it in me, but when someone pushes you far enough, something snaps. That's exactly what happened. Let me start from the beginning. Brandon was the guy everyone liked. Loud, funny, always the life of the party. When we first met, he made me laugh until my face hurt. He flirted hard, like I was the only girl in the room. At first, it felt special. Now I know that's just how he talks to every woman. We met at a 4th of July barbecue thrown by a friend of a friend. He showed up wearing some ridiculous flag shirt, beer in hand, already loud. I was sitting on the porch when he walked over and asked, "Mind if I sit next to the prettiest girl here?" I should have rolled my eyes. Instead, I smiled. I was newly single and vulnerable. He was charming, confident, and just bold enough to make me feel seen. It moved fast. Within 6 months, we were living together. Within a year and a half, he proposed in front of my family on my birthday. I said yes because I wanted to believe it meant something. I wanted to believe that the flirting, the attention-seeking, the long work dinners were all in the past. I thought marriage would ground him. Spoiler, it didn't. Our wedding was small. Not because we didn't have people. We just didn't want to spend a fortune. We had about 60 guests, mostly family. Brandon was already acting weird the night before. He drank too much at the rehearsal dinner and flirted with the bartender right in front of me. I pulled him aside and said, "Hey, not cool." He laughed and said, "Relax, I'm just having fun. You're the one I'm marrying, remember?" I should have listened to my gut that night. But I didn't. The cruise was my idea. A 7-day Caribbean trip leaving from Miami. We had a balcony suite, nice dinners planned, a massage booked, and I packed all these outfits hoping for romantic nights out. Day 1 was fine. We were both tired from the wedding and travel, so we mostly unpacked and napped. He was a little distracted, but I figured it was just the long week catching up to him. Day 2 was when the real stuff started. After lunch, he said he was going to check out the pool and maybe grab a drink. He asked if I wanted to come, but I felt a bit seasick and decided to stay in the cabin for a bit. About an hour later, I felt better and decided to go find him. I fixed my hair, put on a cute sundress, and made my way to the upper deck. I didn't expect what I saw. He was at the pool bar. No shirt, drink in hand, smiling wide. And he wasn't alone. There was this woman next to him. Tall, tan, in a white swimsuit, with one of those just married sashes across her chest. She was leaning toward him, laughing at something he said. "And Brandon?" He was touching her arm, brushing her shoulder like they'd known each other forever. I stood there for a good minute, just watching. Frozen. My heart was racing and my stomach dropped. I thought maybe I was misreading it. Then I saw him take his sunglasses off, look her up and down, and give her that same smile he gave me 3 years ago. That was it. I walked away. Went back to the cabin. I didn't say a word. I waited until he came back hours later, smelling like booze and sunscreen. I asked him calmly, "You were at the pool bar, right?" "Yeah," he said, barely looking at me. "With the newlywed bride?" He glanced at me, smirked, and said, "You should have known marriage wouldn't change me." I stared at him. I didn't cry. I just felt this cold wave wash over me. He said it like it was funny. Like it was a joke. Like I was some stupid girl who got played. That night, I laid in bed next to him, wide awake. My body was still, but my mind was racing. I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't going to let this slide. I wasn't going to spend the rest of this trip humiliated while he acted like some single frat boy on a floating hotel full of drunk strangers. So I came up with a plan. While he snored next to me, I got out of bed and grabbed the notepad from the desk. I wrote this on 5 different sheets of paper: room 7150, free for whoever wants him. Flirts better than he loves. I pulled up a wedding selfie we'd taken just a few days earlier. Both of us in full wedding gear, smiling like idiots. I printed 5 copies from the business center on deck 5. At 2:30 in the morning, I made my move. I walked around the ship and posted those notes in the busiest spots. 1 outside the pool bar, 1 in the women's bathroom near the casino, 1 in the hallway outside our cabin, 1 on the ship's events bulletin board, and 1 by the main elevator near the nightclub. Each one had our wedding picture taped to it. The next morning, I sat in the buffet area alone, sipping coffee and waiting. It didn't take long. I saw a group of girls whispering and pointing at Brandon as he walked past. One guy even high-fived him sarcastically and said, "Nice room number, bro." He looked confused at first. Then suspicious. Then pissed. He stormed up to me and hissed, "What the hell did you do?" I just smiled and said, "You should have known marriage wouldn't change me either." And I meant it. But that was just the beginning. Because I wasn't done yet. He stormed off after I said it. Didn't even try to defend himself. That told me everything. I thought maybe he'd go cool off somewhere. Maybe he'd come back with some kind of apology, or excuse, or at least anger. But he didn't come back to the room at all that night. I stayed in the cabin, sitting on the balcony with a blanket and a bottle of wine I ordered from room service. I watched the ocean in silence, thinking about every sign I ignored. Every time he texted other women as a joke. Every time he accused me of being jealous when I asked a simple question. He never planned on changing. Not even a little. The next morning, I saw him again. He was at breakfast with a group of people. Mostly girls. Younger. Laughing, like nothing happened. Like the night before didn't even register. He made eye contact with me for half a second, then looked away. That told me he'd already decided he was gonna play the victim. Pretend I was the crazy one. Like he had no idea why people were laughing about room 7150. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I just kept walking. When I got back to the room, I found something that made my heart sink. His wedding ring was sitting on the nightstand. Not lost. Not dropped. Just left there. On purpose. I stared at it. Didn't touch it. I knew what it meant. He was done pretending. He wasn't going to try to fix it. He was showing me, loud and clear, that he was moving on before the trip was even over. That's when something inside me flipped again. This time I wasn't just hurt. I was furious. So I made a few quiet moves of my own. First, I went to guest services and asked about flight options from our next port, San Juan, Puerto Rico. There was a flight home to Columbus that left the next morning. I booked it, one way. Second, I took all the pictures from our wedding, our engagement, our cruise so far, everything I had on my phone, and created a little folder labeled, "Honeymoon with a Liar." Then I did something I never thought I'd do, I shared it with his mother. We were never close, but she always acted like Brandon was her golden boy. I sent her the photos, the note I posted on the ship, and wrote this, "Hi Marie. I thought you should know what your son's doing on our honeymoon. I've already booked my flight home. He can enjoy the rest of the cruise playing single. Maybe you raised the wrong one." She didn't respond. Not right away. Instead, his sister did. An hour later, I got a message on Facebook from his younger sister, Danielle, "I'm so sorry. I wish I could say I was surprised. He's done this to almost every girl he's dated. I hoped you'd be different." If you need help when you get back, I got you. That message hit me hard. I'd thought I was alone in this. But apparently, his behavior wasn't new. He just finally got exposed on a bigger stage. Meanwhile, back on the ship, Brandon was living it up like he'd just gotten a divorce and a raise on the same day. Drinking, partying, smiling with strangers. A couple of the girls he'd been hanging around were now giving me dirty looks, like I was the villain. One even came up to me near the elevator and said, "So are you actually married to him? Or was that some weird prank?" I looked her in the eye and said, "No prank. Just the worst mistake I ever made." She blinked and walked away. That night, he finally came back to the cabin, probably because he had nowhere else to crash. I was already packed. My suitcase was sitting by the door. He walked in, saw it, and said, "You're really leaving?" I didn't answer. He sat on the edge of the bed, leaned forward with his elbows on his knees, and said, "This is kind of dramatic, don't you think?" That's what set me off. Dramatic? You flirted with a bride on our honeymoon. You disappeared for 2 nights. You took off your ring. You partied like you were single. And now I'm dramatic? He looked at me and just shrugged. Shrugged. Whatever. If this is how you want to play it, fine. Maybe we rushed into this. That's when I said it. No, Brandon. You rushed into the idea of marriage. I rushed into believing a liar. He stood up, opened the mini fridge, and cracked open a beer like he didn't have a care in the world. So I left. I walked out of that cabin and never looked back. The next morning, I boarded my flight. Alone. Exhausted. Numb. But when I landed in Columbus, something was waiting for me that I didn't expect. His mother had finally replied. And what she said changed everything. When I landed back in Columbus, I turned on my phone and saw I had 5 missed calls and 2 voicemails, from an unknown number. But what caught my eye was a single text notification from Marie, Brandon's mom. I opened it. It was short, "Come by the house when you're ready. I think we need to talk." My stomach turned. We hadn't spoken much before. She was polite but always distant. She played the role of a sweet church-going mom in public, but she never seemed interested in really knowing me. I always figured it was because I wasn't what she pictured for her son. Still, she messaged me, not him. I didn't go right away. I went home first, took a long shower, sat in silence. I stared at the empty apartment we'd planned to move out of once we settled in from the wedding. Our wedding gifts were still stacked in the living room, blender, towel sets, his and hers matching luggage. All of it now felt like props in a cruel joke. 2 days later, I drove over to Marie's. She lived in a quiet neighborhood just outside the city. I hadn't been there more than twice, always for holidays. She opened the door fast, like she'd been waiting. "Come in," she said. We sat at her kitchen table. She had coffee waiting. She looked different. Not as put together. Tired, maybe. She didn't waste time. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know it doesn't change anything. But I'm sorry for how he treated you." I didn't respond. I just nodded. She kept going. "I knew he had issues. I knew he lied. I just never thought he'd carry it into a marriage. I thought maybe if he finally committed, he'd stop." She paused. Then looked straight at me. "But you were right. I raised the wrong one." I sat there stunned. Then she reached into a drawer and pulled out an envelope. She slid it across the table. "What's this?" I asked. "Something you should see." Inside were printed screenshots. Text messages. Between Brandon and another woman. Dozens of them. Going back months. Before the wedding. Flirty messages. Nude photos. Hotel receipts. Conversations that made my skin crawl. I looked at the sender's name. Claire. Who's Claire? I asked. Marie sighed. His ex. The one before you. My blood ran cold. He told me she was crazy, I said. Marie nodded. He told her the same about you. Apparently, he never cut ties. The whole time we were engaged, even while planning the wedding, he was still seeing Claire behind my back. He promised her the same lies. Told her I was just a friend he was helping through something. She didn't know we were actually getting married until she saw our wedding photo on Facebook. According to Marie, Claire had shown up at her house a week before the cruise. In tears. Furious. She brought all the messages, all the proof. She didn't know who to go to. Marie told her to send her everything. That's where the envelope came from. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, voice shaking. Marie looked ashamed. Because I was scared. I thought, if I waited, maybe he'd own up to it. Maybe he'd confess. But he didn't. He ran. That's when she told me something else. Apparently, Brandon hadn't come back to Columbus after the cruise. He'd stayed in Miami. Booked a hotel with his own money and extended the trip. She said he'd been calling, asking her to handle things for him at home. I was speechless. He left me in the dirt and kept partying like nothing happened? Marie handed me another note. This one handwritten, from Claire. It said, I didn't know he was lying to both of us. I hope you destroy him. Let me know if you want help. I didn't know what to say. I left Marie's house with the envelope. Drove home. Sat on my couch and stared at the messages. That night, I made a new plan. I was done being the quiet wife who walked away. Brandon thought he got the last laugh. He had no idea what was coming. I spent the next 2 days putting everything together. I went through the texts between Brandon and Claire again. I organized the screenshots Marie gave me. I found my own proof, his call logs, his receipts, and even some photos in his old iCloud folder he'd forgotten I still had access to. He never changed the password after we got married. That was his first mistake. His second mistake was thinking I'd just disappear. I reached out to Claire. We met at a small diner off the highway halfway between Columbus and her town. She looked tired. Like she hadn't slept much in weeks. But she wasn't angry with me. If anything, we were both shocked by how much we'd been lied to. She told me he said the same things to her. That I was just a friend crashing at his place. That the wedding was a fake. That he loved her. He made up a whole life for each of us. And when things started to get real, he tried to juggle both until it blew up. I told her everything. The cruise. The pool bar. The notes. The flight home. She laughed. Good, she said. But I hope you're not done. I wasn't. Together, we came up with something better. Claire still had access to his Venmo and email. Brandon had given her his login a year ago and forgot. Turns out, he never updated it. That was mistake number 3. Through his email, we found the cruise line's loyalty account, where he had just booked another cruise for early October. Solo. He was going again. Alone. Probably hunting for more women to charm and lie to. We waited. The week of his new cruise, I sent out a message to every person who had attended our wedding. Family, friends, coworkers. I kept it calm. Simple. Attached proof of the texts, photos, Claire's message, and even a clip of him at the pool bar flirting with that newlywed. I included a photo of the note I left on the ship. Subject line, this is what happened on our honeymoon. You deserve to know. I ended it with this, to everyone who gave us money, gifts, time, and love. I won't ask you to forgive me for trusting him. But I will never ask you to support our marriage again, because there isn't one. Then I filed for annulment. No lawyer. no settlement. He didn't fight it. He didn't even respond. And it still wasn't over. Claire and I printed everything. We made a little packet. Then Claire did something that I didn't even know was part of the plan. She mailed it to his boss. Brandon worked at a mid-size sales company. Client-facing. Reputation-based. His job depended on how polished he looked in public. And let's just say, screenshots of him half-naked at a pool bar, flirting with a bride on his honeymoon while his actual wife was crying in a cabin, wasn't the image they liked. He got fired within a week. Marie called me a few days later. She sounded exhausted. I tried to warn him, she said. He just wouldn't listen. I told her, he never listened to anyone. She didn't argue. 2 months later, I got a message from Brandon. It was short. You ruined my life. I stared at it. I didn't reply. Instead, I posted one final message on Facebook, just text, no photos, no drama. But enough for the people who needed to know. Healing looks like leaving the cruise early, sending the truth to everyone who matters, and sleeping peacefully every night knowing you're not the fool anymore. Then I blocked him everywhere. I moved to a new apartment. I started therapy. I stopped blaming myself. Yes, I ignored red flags. Yes, I believed in a man who didn't deserve me. I held on to a fantasy. That was my mistake. But the rest? That was his. And I made sure the entire world saw what kind of man he really was, before he could ever trick someone else into walking down that aisle.